Deep under the sea, in a world of endless blue, there's a story unfolding that's both fascinating and true. It's a tale of survival, of creatures great and small, where the orcas, kings of the ocean, play a role that might surprise us all. These magnificent creatures, known to roam far and wide, show a side we didn't expect, acting as protectors in the underwater tide. They're not just hunters, feared by many in the sea, but guardians who keep at bay the threat of killer sharks, ensuring safety and harmony. This underwater dance, a spectacle so rare, highlights a connection, a truly fair bond. It shows us orcas in a different light, intelligent beings navigating the ocean's might, part of a complex circle of life that thrives out of sight. On the surface, there's a story just as profound, where humans and killer whales have an astoundingly sound bond. In Eden, a tale unfolds, wrapped in mystery and debate, showing an intricate and great dance between humans and nature. This story takes us to Twofold Bay, Australia, where the Tua people and a group of killer whales, including Old Tom, share a truly special alliance. This bond, known as the Law of the Tongue, is a practice both ancient and young. From June to November, during the whaling season, this partnership comes alive with purpose and reason. Killer whales, led by wise matriarchs, work with the whalers in a bold and stark way. They guide baleen whales into the bay, signaling the whalers to join the fray. With leaps and splashes, they communicate, leading the Davidson family to their shared fate. Together, humans and whales undertake a hunt, a display of cooperation, upfront and blunt. The killer whales even help pull the prey, ensuring the hunt's success, come what may. After the hunt, a ritual of sharing takes place, where the killer whales enjoy the catch's taste. They feast on the lips and tongues, their deserved part, leaving the rest for the whalers, showing respect from the heart. This practice, honored through time, is more than just about the hunt, it's a bond sublime. It's about respect, understanding, and a deep connection, breaking barriers between species, a pact they keep. Yet, amidst this tale, there's a touch of sadness and a misunderstanding that led to madness. Old Tom and a whaler, John Logan, had a plight, leading to the orca losing teeth, a sorry sight. This incident marked the fragility of their unique bond, a reminder of the respect and understanding of which both sides were fond. Researchers and traditional custodians are now delving deep, unraveling the genetic secrets these majestic creatures keep. Their collaborative efforts aim to ensure that this story is of mutual respect, cooperation, and survival, both pure and sure, remains a vital part of our history, a narrative of harmony and shared destiny that continues to inspire in all its mystery. Let's take a closer look at the fascinating science and the many ideas about why orcas, also known as killer whales, don't attack humans. Although orcas are called killer whales, they are actually the biggest type of dolphin. Their black and white colors easily recognize them, and the males have really tall dorsal fins, some as high as 5 feet. Orcas are very social and live in groups called pods, which are like big, close-knit families that include many generations. Isn't it fascinating how different species can cooperate so closely? What other animal alliances do you think might exist that we don't know about yet? These amazing animals are known for their strong family ties and their complex social lives. They are smart, communicate well, and use echolocation, like a natural sonar, to find their way around the ocean. Despite being top hunters in the ocean, orcas don't attack humans in the wild, and this is a big mystery. People are really curious about why these powerful animals, which can hunt big marine animals together, don't see humans as prey. There are a few ideas about this. Number 1, smart recognition. Orcas are very intelligent and might be able to tell humans apart from their usual food. Some scientists think that orcas can understand that humans are not what they usually eat, so they don't think of us as food. Number 2, learning from each other. Orcas learn behaviors from their families, passing down knowledge from one generation to the next. If older orcas didn't see humans as food, this non-hunting behavior could be passed on, and young orcas would learn not to hunt humans. Number 3, rare meetings and curiosity. Orcas don't often meet humans in the wild. When they do, they might be more curious than anything else. Since they don't see humans often, there's no usual behavior for orcas to follow when it comes to humans, which could be why they don't attack. Number 4. Respect for each other. Some people think that orcas and humans might have a kind of respect for each other, especially in places where people and orcas have lived near each other for a long time. This idea comes from stories where it seems like orcas and humans get along and even help each other. Although these ideas help us understand a bit more, the real reason why orcas don't attack humans is still not clear. Scientists are still trying to figure it out. What we do know is that orcas and humans living together peacefully is a special and mysterious part of our connection with the natural world. How do you think the peaceful coexistence between orcas and humans reflects on our broader relationship with nature? Can we learn something from orcas about living in harmony with the environment? Orcas, often known as killer whales, are creatures that are so much more than just hunters of the sea. They have a special link with us humans, showing us just how complex and connected the web of life really is. The name orca comes from their scientific name, Orcinus orca, and it makes people think of them as powerful and a bit scary, kind of like Orcus, the god of the underworld from ancient myths. But calling them orcas doesn't fully capture everything about them. They are amazing animals with many sides to them, and we humans have a deep and meaningful connection with these wonderful sea creatures. In the ocean, where all kinds of creatures are trying to survive, orcas are at the top of the food chain. They are known for being incredible hunters, not just because of what they eat, which can be anything from fish and seals to huge great white sharks, but also because of how they hunt. Orcas are really smart and work together in groups to catch their prey. For example, when they go after great white sharks, they hit the shark so hard that it gets stunned. Then they flip the shark over, which makes it unable to move. Orcas are so precise in what they do that they don't eat the whole shark. Instead, they just take out the liver and eat it, almost like a surgeon. Their hunting is so impressive and scary that even great white sharks, who are known to be fierce hunters themselves, will stay away from an area for up to a whole year if they know orcas have been there. But there's even more to these amazing creatures. In the cold waters of the Antarctic, orcas have been seen making waves to knock seals off of ice so they can catch them. In warmer months, they work together to surround schools of fish. They create a wall of bubbles and use their tails in a synchronized way to herd the fish. These methods are not just about finding food, they show that orcas can work together, solve problems, and use their environment in smart ways. Scientists are still trying to understand just how intelligent orcas are. What really makes orcas special, though, is how they live together. They stay in groups called pods, which are like big families led by a mother or a matriarch. The way they work together and communicate is almost hard to believe. They have a complicated social structure and, combined with their physical strength, it puts them at the very top of the food chain in the ocean. They are not just powerful creatures, they're a symbol of how life in the ocean is interconnected and how every creature, big or small, has its own important place in the world. Orcas are smart hunters and work well in groups. Do you think any other animals are this smart and work together like this? The study of orcas, also known by the more dramatic name of killer whales, is incredibly interesting and filled with complex details. It grabs our attention and sparks debates. Back in the 1970s, researchers started to really dive deep into understanding how orcas live and interact with each other. They discovered that these sea creatures have a really advanced way of communicating and forming social groups. Orcas make different sounds like clicks, whistles, and calls. These aren't just random noises, they use them for finding their way and hunting in the ocean, but also to talk to each other and keep their community together. Each group of orcas, or pod, even has its own special way of communicating, almost like having their own language. The way orcas find their way and hunt is particularly fascinating. They create these sounds called click trains. Imagine these as powerful, sharp sound waves that they use to figure out where they are and find food, even in dark, murky waters. These clicks come from moving air through their nose and then sending it out through the large, round part of their heads called melons. It works sort of like the sonar system on a submarine, but it's all natural. This system is super precise. Orcas can tell the difference between different kinds of fish without even seeing them, just by using these sounds. But orcas don't just use sounds for hunting. They make a whole range of noises for different reasons. To talk to each other up close, they use whistles. For sending messages over long distances underwater, they make loud sounds that are kind of like the noise of a jet engine. What's really amazing is that these sounds aren't just things they're born knowing how to make. They learn them from each other, which is a big part of their culture. Each family group or pod has its own special set of sounds, and these sounds help them stay organized, work together when they're hunting, and keep their traditions alive. Researchers have been finding out even more about how complex orca society is. By using drones to watch them from above, scientists have seen how orcas have friendships and interact in really structured ways, just like people do. Their culture is so rich that it even affects what they like to eat, who they choose to mate with, and how they spend their free time. What does this tell us about how they, and maybe we, learn to talk and make friends? Different groups of orcas have their favorite foods and special ways of hunting. Some prefer fish like salmon, and others are experts at hunting bigger sea animals or even sharks. In recent times, there have been some interesting and controversial reports about orcas. They've been seen interacting with boats more often. Some of these interactions seem like the orcas are just playing around or trying out new things with the boats. This shows us that orcas are really curious and smart, and they keep surprising the people who study them and love to watch them. Studying orcas isn't just about learning cool facts about these incredible animals. It also makes us think about how important it is to protect them and keep the ocean healthy. Every new thing we find out shows us more about the amazing world under the sea. It's a world where sound isn't just for talking, it's the foundation of a complex society with many layers. The hope is that as we continue to study orcas, we'll keep uncovering the secrets of how they communicate and live together. This can teach us a lot about how smart and socially complex these marine mammals really are. For a long time, experts have known that orcas, also known as killer whales, live in complex families and communities. However, the full extent of how unique and special these groups were didn't become clear until the 1980s. It was around this time that researchers began to really explore and understand the fascinating underwater chats these magnificent sea creatures have with each other. What they found out was truly surprising. They learned that each group, or pod of orcas, talks to each other using a set of sounds that is completely their own, almost like they have their own special language or dialect. Let's look more closely at the orcas that live in one place all year round, known as resident orcas. These orcas have their own ways of communicating. One group might start their calls with a series of low, rhythmic sounds, then switch to a single smooth sound that goes up and down from 3 to 5 kHz to more than 8 kHz. A different group might prefer a totally different style. They might start with a low sound that gets higher slowly, then add a lower sound that pulses before suddenly jumping to a very high sound, and ending with one more low sound. These resident orcas have a wide variety of calls with dozens of different sounds, each one special to their own group. But what's really fascinating is how different the resident orcas' calls are from the calls of transient orcas that pass through the same area. Transient orcas are much quieter. When they're hunting, they often don't make any noise at all, not even using echolocation, which is very different from the talkative groups of resident orcas. Despite being so quiet, all the transient orcas in the Pacific Northwest have one call that they all use, but only sometimes. This call is a long, quiet, low sound. These unique calls of the orcas, which have stayed the same for many years, seem to be very important for keeping each other's groups' identities. It's not their genes that decide how they act, but their culture. This culture leads to a rich variety of traditions and methods, each one made just for their own particular way of life and the specific animals they hunt. Orcas have their own traditions that can change over time. How do you think this is similar to or different from human traditions? Now, let's dive into a bit of controversy. The orcas near the coast of Argentina have a hunting method that is truly amazing and a bit shocking. People first saw this in 1985. When the tide is high and the sea is calm, these orcas do something that takes your breath away. They intentionally beach themselves to catch sea lions right off the shore. They ride the waves in like a terrifying wave, timing their attack just right to grab the unsuspecting sea lion in the middle of the confused and churning shallow water. The sea lions, clumsy on land and caught off guard while trying to go from swimming to walking in the rough shallow water, often don't see the danger coming until it's too late. Once the orca is on the beach, it rocks from side to side, getting itself lined up with the shore, waiting for the next wave to push it back into the sea with its catch. This method of hunting is very risky. If they make a mistake with the waves, an orca might end up stuck on the beach, which can be deadly. Out of the 30 orcas along this part of the coast, only 13 have learned how to do this dangerous hunting trick. It takes years of careful practice to learn, with young orcas watching and learning from the older ones, practicing without real prey, and sometimes even using things like seaweed to make their practice more interesting. It's interesting to note that the female orcas always lead these lessons, doing so with a lot of care and attention to detail. However, not every young orca makes it through this tough training. The scary feeling of being stuck on the beach with all their weight out of the water is enough to make some give up for good. But for the few that do make it, their first successful hunt is a big deal, and even then, they still need help from an older orca to make it back to the sea safely. This complex way of learning from each other, even though it's hard and dangerous, shows us just how adaptable and skilled orcas are as one of the top predators in the world. The idea that orca societies are so rich and complex that they might be evolving mainly through cultural influences rather than just genetics is a topic that fascinates many scientists. It's a bit like how humans have adapted over time. For example, many of us have learned to digest milk, which wasn't always the case. In a similar way, orcas seem to be adapting and changing based on their unique habits and traditions. The differences between the two main types of orcas, those that stay in one place, known as residents, and those that move around, known as transients, are becoming so distinct that some experts think they might eventually become entirely separate species. Interestingly, this potential split isn't because they live in different places, but because their cultures are diverging. This leads to a fascinating question. Can culture shape the course of evolution as strongly as the physical separation of groups? Recent research has underlined that orcas have big brains, weighing between 5.4 and 6.8 kilograms. These marine mammals have the second biggest brains of all animals, coming in just behind sperm whales. But it's not just the size of their brains that's impressive, it's also the ratio of their brain size to their body size, known as the encephalization quotient. Orcas score very high on this scale, ranking just below humans and close to another intelligent sea creature, the bottlenose dolphin. This high EQ is a clue that orcas might be capable of very complex thoughts, similar to many animals that live on land. But there's more to the orca's brain than just its size. The cerebral cortex, the part of the brain that's folded into complex patterns, is especially noteworthy. These folds, known as gyrification, are a sign of a highly advanced brain. It means that their brains aren't just big, they're also packed with lots of nerve tissue, which helps them process information in a sophisticated way. In fact, when it comes to how wrinkled their brains are, orcas are at the top of the list, more than any other species on Earth. When scientists look even closer into the orca's brain, they find something remarkable: a well-developed insular cortex. This part of the brain is linked to complex emotions. It's involved in feeling empathy, being aware of oneself, and understanding the feelings of others. This suggests that orcas might not just be smart, they might also experience deep emotions, maybe even similar to what humans feel. Orcas might feel big emotions, just like us. How should this change the way we treat them and think about them? The development of the insular cortex indicates that orcas might be emotionally complex and possibly have a level of consciousness that's like ours. In 2001, researchers conducted experiments to see if orcas could recognize themselves, using what's known as the mirror test. This test checks if an animal can understand that its reflection in a mirror is actually an image of itself. The results were amazing. The orcas didn't just notice marks that were put on their bodies, they interacted with their reflections in ways that show they recognize themselves. This suggests that orcas have a sophisticated understanding of who they are. The intelligence and emotional depth of orcas make them more than just interesting animals to study. They act like a mirror, showing us aspects of our own species. Even though humans and orcas took different paths in evolution millions of years ago, the more we learn about orcas, the more we see surprising similarities. We see these in the complex ways they interact with each other and how they behave. Orcas keep surprising scientists and everyone else who learns about them. A recent observation showed something remarkable. Orcas are good at working together not just with their own family groups, but even with different species. For example, they've been seen cooperating with humpback whales during hunts for fish like herring. This discovery adds a whole new layer to our understanding of how sophisticated orca societies are. It shows that the line between the complex societies of humans and the social structures in the animal kingdom might be blurrier than we thought. Isn't it amazing how animals and humans can help each other? Hit the like button, subscribe, and tell us what you think about other amazing friendships in the animal world. Your thoughts keep the adventure alive.